So returning to the north with Bran 5, we find that Bran is now able to ride a horse thanks to the harness that was designed for him by Tyrion. And we don't get much indication as to how much time has passed in this chapter compared to the previous one, but we do know that Bran has been practicing for a fortnight to ride on his own, which implies to us that considerable amounts of time have passed, as the saddle would have had to have been designed, built, and then the horse itself would have needed trained, and then Bran would have needed to learn how to ride it with supervision before this point. Now, we find that this is Bran's first time actually leaving Winterfell since he fell from the tower, and we find that he goes outside with Robb, Grey Wind in Summer, and Theon, along with 4 guardsmen, and Joseph, who is the new Master of Horse since Ned took the old one with him to King's Landing. And they are followed by Maester Luwin, who is there to observe Bran's progress. They come to a market square beyond the castle with a village which is known as Wintertown, which has a local alehouse called the Smoking Log. And Theon implies here that he has bedded both Kyra and Bessa who work here. We also get the interesting note about how Wintertown works. Most of the houses here appear to be uninhabited, but as winter draws near, people will flock from all over the north to congregate in this one area in order to survive living together in these homes. Now, we get note of several ravens having arrived in the recent past, which can also help to date whenabouts this chapter seems to occur, as we find that Robb wrote to the Night's Watch and then received a reply, so at least enough time for the Raven to get from Winterfell to the Wall, and then a second Raven back to Robb has occurred. And that Raven had to have left the Wall following the writing of the note within, which confirmed that Benjen is missing. This is later followed by a message from the Eyrie from Catelyn, and this letter was sent from the Eyrie to confirm that she had taken Tyrion hostage. So we have no idea how long time has passed since that Raven also arrived at Winterfell. And Bran notes that the mentioning of Lannister sends cold fingers creeping up his spine, yet it is revealed to us that he cannot remember why he should have negative thoughts of the Lannisters. Bearing in mind it was Jaime who pushed him out the window, Bran appears to be unable to remember this fact, as whenever he tries to remember, he feels dizzy and his stomach clenches like a stone. So either this is a trauma response, or someone is deliberately suppressing this memory. And it is curious, as we did see in Bran 3, that while in the dreamscape, Bran thought of Jaime coming to him in that dreamscape, and the crow kept telling him to put it away. And upon that same day of receiving the letter from the Eyrie, we discovered that Robb sent out riders to all of the northern houses in order to raise his banners. And Bran even heard note of Kaelin being mentioned. And now, as this chapter occurs, we get another raven that has just arrived. And this raven brings news from King's Landing and reveals to us that Jory has been killed, as well as Will and Heward. And so, whatever length of time it takes for a raven to get from King's Landing to Winterfell has occurred since that chapter. The contents of the letter reveal that it was also sent while Ned was still abed from the fight, as Robb reveals that it is noted that a horse broke Ned's leg, and also that he is being treated with milk of the poppy by Pycelle. And so they have no indication yet that he is actually awakened. Before returning to Winterfell, they decide to track down their wolves to bring them back, and they enter the Wolf's Wood. And while in here, Bran takes note of a spider's web which is created by an Empress spider, which seems to be an interestingly named specimen of spider, which we never get any elaboration on, but the fact that it's named Empress strikes me as odd, as the only indication we get of empresses in this world is the Amethyst Empress, which to me would seem to indicate that the Empress spider is perhaps amethyst coloured, or a purple spider, which would be interesting as well, as the only other known time I have known for a purple spider to be a thing is in Lovecraft lore, which is heavily used in a lot of the ancient lore of George's world in A Song of Ice and Fire. And in particular, these large purple spiders are noted to be from Ling, which is supposed to be a plateau in the Dreamlands. So we get a connection here between spiders, the colour purple, and dreams. And as I have been pointing out so far throughout these examinations of the chapters, we have actually got something that this lines up with. A spider dressed in purple who potentially has magical abilities to see into people's dreams. Varys. Rob rides off to find the wolves and leaves Bran alone in a clearing where he is soon set upon by 6 people who appear to be wildlings and deserters from the Night's Watch working in unison after having fled south. Now we notice here that Osha is actually the one who considers taking Bran, being Benjen Stark's own blood, to be a hostage for Mance Rayder. However, the others refute this and claim that they are going further south because they want to avoid the White Walkers, because they do not care if you have hostages. Which is interesting here, as does Osha actually support Mance Rayder and isn't actually trying to flee south like she claims to be in the TV show. The wolves and Rob both arrive and a massive battle ensues, which leads to all but one of the 6 attackers being left standing, who immediately takes Bran as a hostage to save his own skin. With Rob at a standstill, with the attacker threatening to kill Bran, the tension is released when Theon strikes the man with his bow, killing him instantly, and then the guards and Lewin show up to inspect the damage. Now, when they decide what to do with the remains of the attackers following the battle, it is decided that they will lop off the heads and send them back to the wall as a message against desertion. However, Osha, the only survivor, claims that she did not come from the wall and therefore she is not actually deserving of this fate, and points out that 2 of the others actually came from the wall, which may imply that 2 of the 6 people here were Night's Watchmen, but the other 4 are all wildlings. So we end the chapter with Osha being detained and brought back to Winterfell, and what I do find interesting here is the fact that she mentions that if he gives her her life, then she is his, which, if she is indeed a wildling, mirrors what happens with Jon and Ygritte, as by defeating her in battle, Rob has unknowingly, according to wildling customs, technically betrothed himself to her, which is something that I've never seen brought up before, but is actually quite curious to consider here, and may explain why she goes on to be so loyal to them despite this being how they originally meet.